This is the third podcast of Bella and Will talking about younger onset Alzheimer's and Bella's diagnosis, which took place in February. It is now December. And our first one was kind of an introduction, and our second one was about personality changes. And today our theme is going to be work. And this is particularly appropriate because we've just resolved that Bella is going to retire in about 2 weeks. So, what do you think about that?
Can I say anything I want?
Absolutely. It's our podcast.
But don't play it until after I leave work.
No. No.
I'm just kidding. I'm joking. What do I think about work?
Well, what do you think about, the fact that you're retiring and that you're having to retire because of the Alzheimer's and so on?
Well, I would say that it's probably time for me to move on to another direction, For the most part, I was very happy at North Country. Working, should I say that?
Sure. No, explain what it is.
Okay, North Country Community College is a 3-campus college. Strange enough, I first attended college when I lived in Saranac Lake and went to North Country Community College. And then we moved to Malone, where I completed my 2-year degree at North Country Community College in Malone, and now I'm formally an ex-employee from the Ticonderoga North Country Community College. So I've hit every single North Country Community College campus. For an extensive period of time, I was at those 3 places. The longest was obviously where I worked, as opposed to where I was a student.
Right. And you've done really well there.
Yeah, I have, but it's not like it was when I first started working there. There's been a lot of changes. I really miss Gail, who was the president of the college when I was hired. She was really good. And we've had a lot of presidents in between, Gail and Steve, who's the president now. There was several interim presidents, which I weathered all of those.
Right. And work has always been a really big thing for you.
Yeah.
You've always worked really hard, and you worked tremendously hard to get your degrees.
Right. No, I did. I was very committed to the idea of being educated. I really love education, which is one of the reasons why I worked in education.
Do you feel like do you feel satisfied? Do you feel like this is coming too soon, or are you okay with it?
Well, for a long time I was really resentful that I had to leave because of my condition. I didn't resent my condition. I resented the fact that I had to leave. It's not my condition's fault that society isn't ready yet to acknowledge that just because you're not perfect, that you're not as useful.
So you think you should be able to continue to work there?
I think I think anybody who has a disability, for one thing, it's the law, should be able to decide for themselves when it's time to go, as long as what they're deciding isn't a problem for the employment. For example, if I could stay where I am at work and continue to do my job, and I would say probably pretty well. For one thing, even though I've told people I have Alzheimer's, not everybody knows, and when I find someone that doesn't know, they're shocked. They're like, there's no way. You don't seem like you have Alzheimer's. And I think that's really true. I'm not to the point where it's so noticeable unless you're looking for it. which is why I probably shouldn't have come out clean about it when I first realized it was going to be, I was going to be working still. And I just felt it was better to be honest and to be straightforward about it. But not everybody feels that way.
So you regret that?
I don't regret it because it's something I think is really important. You should be able to say, I have a disability and it may affect my work, but I want you to know about it and I want some help with it. That should be like a matter of, that's the way it should be for everyone. You shouldn't be ostracized because you have a condition, especially a condition that isn't necessarily going to create a large problem. There are lots of ways you can assist people without compromising the situation. But, people just are not interested in that kind of camaraderie or that kind of, working together as a whole as opposed to individual, parts. It's very, it's like everybody has their little kingdom or their little fiefdom, and they don't, they're not really worried about what goes on outside that little area of theirs.
So you think the college could have done better in
absolutely
helping you continue to do the job?
Absolutely. In fact, I have the policy on my desk right now. I've been seething over it for a while, but I have that policy about affirmative action and people with disabilities and how they have a right to work and how you can't discriminate against them. I mean, it's like 3 pages long. It's dated and it has everything you would want in an affirmative action kind of thing. Yet that's not the road that, in my situation, they went.
Right.
It was like, well, you need to move on.
What do you think they could have done, that wasn't done? What do you think, how do you think they could have approached it that you would feel better about?
Well, I think that it would have been better if they had let me have more decision in how I approached my work life and my retirement. I don't think they were mean or anything, but I feel like I was a bump in the road and they wanted to smooth it out. And I happen to be a kind of, I'm not the kind of bump that is easy to smooth out. And I think that it was, I have a strong personality and I have a lot of self-confidence. So they didn't wreck my soul or anything. But to be honest, my feelings were a little hurt with how it was more difficult than it needed to be. I mean, there was confrontation with my supervisor over the stupidest stuff, like really high school petty shit, in my opinion. But, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. In fact, it's really funny because I was outed by my mother-in-law recently that I have Alzheimer's some of the people that were at this party, which I don't have a problem with.
Who's your mother-in-law, by the way?
Oh, she's a lovely woman. Very adorable. But, and I don't have a problem with that, but they were shocked. They were like, I cannot believe that. I never would have guessed that. Which, a lot of people have said that, but it's like, well, if nobody else could guess that, how bad could I be that nobody even knew that I had it unless I told them?
Right.
So it's like, how bad could my job have been? How bad could it have been if nobody even recognized that I had Alzheimer's without me first telling them?
I think there was a bureaucratic inflexibility. I think your supervisor wanted things done in a very rigid bureaucratic way, and that to do it that way was extremely difficult in your circumstances.
And not only that, it would be extremely difficult in my circumstances without Alzheimer's.
Well, that's true.
Because, it's like you can't be so rigid. And that, the whole, way of doing things in such a sort of strict way, I mean, that can bring down monarchies, People rebel against that stuff. And if you have someone that you're working with who is just so rigid, it makes it very difficult to be comfortable or at ease, and it can be a little nerve-wracking. But the thing is that I still can do a really good job and have all sorts of things that I deal with every day. Better if at the workplace that I was at, if they had somebody who was actually in charge. I mean, it's sort of a little chaotic there. There's no one person in charge of the situation. It's like everybody, there's a whole bunch of people it's like being kids on the playground. If there isn't a monitor there to watch what they're doing, then people are not going to necessarily...
Right. Do you think that became harder for you to handle?
It did, because when I first started working there was a sense of positivity. And also there was this, there was this attitude that you work together to make a environment that was healthy for everyone. But it doesn't, there's a couple of people on campus that I think are incredibly decent human beings and probably have made an enormous contribution to the lives of the students they work with. But that's far and, there's not a lot of that goes on. It's like everybody has their little place. Even just in the building, it's like this person has their space here, this person has their space here, this person has their space here. And there's they're always so busy that there's no warm and fuzzy, which I think our students need a little warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
I'm the warm and fuzzy person.
Right.
And
right. But that wasn't what you were being measured on.
No, I wasn't being measured on the fact that I take care of every little tiny thing. That, the students that we have, they're not all, living in big fancy houses and driving really fancy sports cars. They're living life the way most of us are, which is day by day, week by week, month by month, trying to get something out of, what they put in.
Right. If it were graded on, nurturing, that would have been different.
Oh, if it were, or just helping solve life problems. Yeah. That is what I do more than anything else on the campus, is I solve life problems for the students, which I'm really good at. And I was a domestic violence counselor. I worked at Head Start. I've done jobs where nurturing was a big part of what I did. And this was not a nurturing environment.
Yeah.
There's some people there, I will say, are so nurturing. But you know what? They don't work there full time. They're adjuncts.
Yeah.
There's a couple of full-time people that work there that are fairly nurturing, but the majority of them they got their own thing going on. And it's not, it's not the way, if I were in charge of the world, that is not the way it would work.
Right.
Everybody would have somebody they could go to.
So, I'm wondering, I've been in favor of your retiring.
Yes, you have.
And I've tried to help facilitate it so, it works economically, it works financially, and that, we can do it. So, are you okay with my role in that? I've wondered whether you wish that I had pushed harder for you to stay at work.
No. Honey, there's probably nothing you can do that would make me feel in some way that you didn't do something right. There's really nothing.
That's not true.
Yes, it is. I mean, you are a very nurturing person yourself, which is why we get along so well, because we're both nurturers. But I think that when you're working with a bunch of college students, they're adults, they're legal adults, you have to treat them like a legal adult. But you can still guide them in a way that sort of feeds their soul. I mean, you're already educating them, so they're already having the, their brain activated. But you also need to, encourage them to be somebody, not just to get grades and get a degree and then what? You just leave and you go back to your old life now that you're done with school? No, there should be a plan, which would be the job I was looking at.
Right.
That would be a perfect job for me. Because it's
let's talk about that, because the time after retirement is looming. You're only going to be at work for a couple more weeks. Then you're going to have all this free time, and I feel like you and I have pretty different views on how that time is going to be used.
Well, I don't want to lay down and die. I don't want to lay down and die. I don't want to lay down and start watching movies and doing. I mean, I do have a desire to do some of that, but I feel like I can still contribute. As you know, I've been pretty much in denial about the Alzheimer's, and even though I didn't test positive for Lyme, which I was really hoping for, I feel like I still have a lot to contribute, and I could volunteer, but I have to be pushed a little bit. So volunteering is I don't really have to go in. It's just a volunteer. I don't want to be doing that. I want to be able to really continue to contribute. Just because I have mild Alzheimer's at this point, and I'm sure it's going to get worse as I get older, and then I'll be like a total kook, but I still feel like I have a lot left to contribute to society.
I think you have a lot left to contribute, but I think going into a full-time job is a mistake. I think leaving this job and going into another demanding full-time job where you have to keep track of a lot of things and handle a lot of responsibilities is a mistake.
Well, that could be. That could be true. And it makes me a little nervous. I don't want to start something I can't finish. That is not something I'm really good at. But I have been a hard worker all my life. From the time I was 11, I started babysitting, and I've always sort of worked. There was a period of time when I didn't work, but that was in the dark ages. And
I think you should have patience. I think that you can put together. It may take some time. That you can put together a life that you will be happy with different things. And one part of it might be a part-time job, and one part of it might be volunteer work, and you might develop some hobbies, and spend more time with Sophia maybe, and spend more time with your animals and that sort of thing.
What about you? You don't want to spend time with me?
No,
am I making you crazy?
I will be spending time with you, but I will still be working. I'll still have my job, but you've talked about doing other things, and I think personally, I think that's the way to go.
So you don't really want me to get another job?
Right.
You probably don't think I could get another job.
I think it. I don't know what would happen. Now, for one thing, we've done these podcasts, so if you were to apply, for instance, at ACC, they would know that.
I wouldn't. I would tell them up front anyway. Any
Right.
job I went for, I'd be like, just so you know, I'm an Aussie.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that because of something I did today, I'm more inclined to go along with what you're saying. Because in the UK, they have this whole Alzheimer's thing, and you can join their group, and it's called like APOE4, which is the chromosome that gives you the Alzheimer fun. So I tried to sign up to be part of their discussion, and I couldn't remember. I couldn't keep track. Well, not keep track. For some reason, I couldn't get in. I gave them my email address. I gave them a password, a username, like a handle or whatever you call it. And I just couldn't get anything. I couldn't go through. For one thing, I'll give myself a little credit. It was all in the English type of language.
Mm-hmm. British English.
Yeah, and it was, just trying to figure out the time difference between the two countries was a little difficult. But that would have happened to me no matter what. I'm a bit of a knucklehead when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, but things have changed. I think it's hard for you to appreciate it and
I'm a
to accept
person.
it. Yeah. Think about the bills. I mean, you were really having trouble with those bills, and for a long time you had no trouble at all.
I had trouble with the bills?
That's why I'm doing the bills.
What did I do?
I actually
Forget
took
them?
over doing the bills. I guess you had your diagnosis, but it was just right after. You just found it impossible to sort of keep track of whether you had paid and when you had paid and what the passwords were, and our national grid got they were going to take us off the budget plan because of screwing it up.
Well, I could have done that without being an Aussie.
You could have, but you never did.
Oh. I was good back then, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Very much. But I'm nicer now. I may have been better at being organized and stuff, but I wasn't that nice. I'm much nicer now. The disorganized Bella is much better than the
so you
on
gotta
top
find
of things.
You gotta find the niceness job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what to do. It's hard for me to walk away from work. It's been very, I've been working since I was a young person. And I've taken breaks from work and here and there. But I've never not worked.
Yeah.
I mean, I started working at age 11.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to, it's going to be another challenge for you. You're going to have to figure that out. And I think there's sort of, that is an explanation. You're sort of looking for, I'll just jump into another job. It's like, this is going to be a big change.
But wonder if they find the cure.
That's different. That'll be different.